I'm a firm believer, like you, that leadership plays a big role. However, it's also leadership in the firehouse where it's not necessarily just a
Mhm.
captain. It can be a older member,
Yeah,
a
sure.
more seasoned member to take a younger member who maybe is showing some signs, maybe is displaying things that he's seen before, takes him to the side, and hey, let's talk about this. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Next Level Dad Fitness Podcast. We have another exciting episode lined up for you guys today. I have a special guest, Morgan England. Today, Morgan has lived a long and full life, going from acting, father, paramedic, TEDx speaker, all of these wonderful things. So we have a awesome show lined up for you guys. Without further ado, Morgan, welcome to the show.
Right on. So glad to be here, man. So glad to connect with you.
Yeah, and so Morgan and I share obviously the fire department experience. He is a father. It looks like you have a daughter, right?
I have a daughter who's 33, a son who's 31, and a daughter who's 11.
Very nice. Three kiddos.
Yeah, so I'm back into it with this one. So she's
Yeah,
awesome.
dude, you really you got started all over again. That's awesome.
Crazy.
Yeah, I have a 13, a 7, and a 3-year-old. So
Oh,
a
wow.
little bit behind, but most definitely can relate to the 11-year-old with everything that comes with that.
Yeah.
Um, and like I said, we have a friend in common who kind of just linked us together. And he told me about you and the things that you talk about. So I took a deep dive into all of the topics that you talked about and everything with the fire department and healing. And then I kind of dug a little bit deeper, and then you got music, and you have this life full of rich experiences. So I thought, man, I got to reach out and we got to connect and talk about some of these topics because some of these topics are very near and dear to me, which are mental health, wellness, or for first responder, firefighters, and it just so happens that we've worked in the same general area here in LA. So hey, we made it work, and now we are here. So like I said, all of those experiences that you've had, who is Morgan England today?
Today, he's the most calm, peaceful, centered, um, content person that he's ever been in his life. Yeah, that's pretty intense, man.
That's pretty deep, man. We're getting started right off the bat. Centered and content.
And
Not a lot of
connected.
people, and connected.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people can say that. Sometimes we go through life, and I feel like we're chasing some invisible finish line. And we think to ourselves, once I get here, then I can be happy. Once I reach this goal, then I can be happy. Once I fill in the blank. Not a lot of people actually get to the space mentally that you're at. How did that all come about?
Well, by active pursuit, really. I remember, so I walked away from the fire department after 14 years. I'd done, I don't know, I think total of 20 as a paramedic with the last 14, the LAFD. And I was just not in a good place. I hated coming to work. The thought of it was just, and I loved the job, so it was heartbreaking. But at the same time, I felt like, I just remember being on the app floor, just um, kind of miserable. Just the culture was really the thing. That just the constant. erosion of your soul and it's just like, ugh. Um, and I had this feeling that, well, I just did this other talk in Texas, and this story that I told, I came back from, like, I don't know, 17th call or whatever, 4 in the morning. Went to splash some water on my face, and I looked in the mirror, and I just jumped back in fright. It was like this old man staring at me. I didn't recognize him. And shit, I looked behind me. I literally had this moment of, fuck, there's somebody else in here. And then I'm looking at this guy. He's stooped and pale and lines etched in his face, just dead eyes. And I realized it's me, and it scared the shit out of me. And I started to just feel like I'd been given this gift of life, and um, that I wasn't honoring it, that I needed to honor it somehow. And um, so anyway, when I kind of what I was telling myself, the things that I'd lost and the things that I'd wanted to gain by leaving the fire department, I'd lost my voice, my ability to, like, have an opinion, to defend myself, to um, just stand on my 2 feet and say, this is what I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was just burnt out. I was angry. I was in a just I was living to get through the next call, come back home, pay the bills, feed the kids, freaking get ready to come back to work. And I was always in busy places, MacArthur Park, North Hollywood, and um, a lot of play. That's where I wanted to be, where the work was. But um, I remember thinking, I want to find peace and joy in life. I want to see if that's possible. And so I thought, I was going to get into writing music and stuff, something that I'd put away when I started the fire department, and said, I'll get back to that after I raise my kids and do all that kind of stuff. So I had this idea, but honestly, I had no plan. I just had the plan to find peace in life and joy and happiness. Um, and 2 years after leaving the fire department, I was on a drive to nowhere, and I couldn't see myself alive the next day. I just couldn't. It's not like I had any kind of plan or anything. I just couldn't. I couldn't envision that. And then my mother calls me out of the blue. She's like 91. She hadn't called me in years. I didn't know if she could call me, but she's like, come over to the house. And anyway, that was kind of the lowest day for me. Um, and she never said anything when I finally got to her house. Like, she just put her hand on my shoulder. She tucked me into the bathroom with the warm water running, and then she led me into the dining room. There was this plate of cucumbers, because I'd come in there, and at one point I just broke, man. I was just sobbing. I'd never done that in my life. And I took a bite of that cucumber, and man, that was like life just exploded in me, just coursed through my body. Just that one bite of cucumber, that earth connection to God, to um, and it was like, I remember sitting there and looking at that plate, and and it was like a life or death choice. Like, am I going to choose life right now? Because here it is in front of me. And it was like I chose life in that moment and took that bite. And I don't know, that was sort of the beginning of the healing journey for me. Um, I did all kinds of things. Like, I tried meditation. I tried these infoceutical things, which have this little drops with frequencies in it. Which, those are crazy, because they actually did. Like, there's one that says, like, it. She told me when she gave it to me, she's like, "You're gonna say stuff that you don't mean to say, or don't. So be careful." And it's sure enough, I just blurt out things. I'm like, oh my god! But sound meditation, combined with psychedelics, it was a session that lasted about 5 hours, and it was life changing. The next day, the PTSD or the hypervigilance, the always, the phobias, fears that I developed, like flying, being in a 35,000 feet in a little tube. I was just like, and even the ocean, I don't even know. And I've surfed and been in the ocean my whole life. I just started getting these sort of fears. All those things dropped away the next day, the next morning. It was incredible. Um, and then uh, I I wanted to get into public speaking because I'd gone to this seminar where this guy, he's a songwriter. It's like the guys write songs like you'd hear at day camp, or summer camp, kumbaya kind of songs.
Yeah.
And he goes, the way that I'm making tons of money is by calling myself a keynote speaker. So I'll tell a story, do a song, original song, another story, song, story, song, and it all ties together. And you got your hour, and now instead of getting paid as a musician, like free food and maybe $100 or something, you're making 5, 10, you're making real money for that same amount. You also have your music involvement and stuff like that. When I went to that seminar, I was in no condition to do that. But after my mom died, she left me a little money, and this coaching course popped up about, do you want to write a TEDx talk? And I'm like, now it's time.
Yeah.
And so I got into this coaching, and remember at first, um, you're in the Zoom, there's a coach and there's a couple other speakers, and you're all going to give a little bit of talking. And these other speakers have, they've been psychiatrists for 30 years, or they have some course that they have, or, a book that they've written and all this stuff, PhDs and MDAs and whatever, all those things. And I remember saying, hey, I didn't graduate college. I don't have any kind of, I have nothing to show for my life. Um, and, uh, all these people have all these other, she goes, Morgan, what are you talking about? You've saved hundreds of lives. You've made such a difference. And I'm like, yeah, but that was just my job. I mean, it's not like I mean, that was what my job was. And she's like,
Right.
no, you have to. Anyway, she basically said, you have to own it. You have to own what you did. And when I left the fire department, I felt like a failure. I felt like I couldn't hack it. Um, and so it took me months to even start telling some of the stories in my time in the fire department and stuff. And when I would, everybody in the coaching, they're like, okay, that's what you need to talk about. And I'm like, hell no, not me, never. I'm not that guy. Pick somebody else. But then like 8 months went by, 8 or 9 months. And I just woke up one morning. I'm like, let me just look in and see if anybody's I put in mental health first responders, and the statistics, um, saw another firefighter, Robert Arrieta from Albuquerque, and he did a thing about his PTSD, this childhood that it went on for years, and finally, the straw that broke the camel's back, I guess. But he
Yeah.
did this video, and I thought, how can the courage it takes to speak about this, I couldn't imagine it. And I reached out to the guy. I could, at the end, the engine leaves the station, and I ran it back and forth to try to see what the department was. I think it's something Albuquerque, maybe. It was an adjacent to it was Albuquerque. And then, so I call these numbers, I don't get anywhere. I finally call the chief's office, and the secretary answers, and I say, hey, do you have this guy, Robert Arrieta? She's like, no, he doesn't work here. And I said, well, that's weird, because the reason I'm calling is because I just saw this video, and I'm LAFD, and I wanted to talk. She's like, hold on. I'm on the hold for like 2 minutes. She comes back on the phone. She says, okay, Robert's waiting for your call. Here's the number, yada, yada. And I find out when I talk to him that somebody had heard his story. They wanted to do this video. And he asked his department, hey, can we do it in one of the stations? They go, hell no. We're not talking about mental health and any of that pussy shit in this department.
Yeah.
So he calls the chief, who we went to paramedic school with Albuquerque, and And it's like, yeah, do it here. So that's why he couldn't even do it in his own department. So this is the stigma with mental health still pretty
Yeah.
gnarly. But the thing that really changed for me was then he and other people, I started connecting with other first responders that had kind of been to the bottom and survived, brought themselves back up. I mean, we all have many people that didn't. So hearing their stories, that was when, for me, I was like, okay, somebody needs to talk about this, and I'm uniquely positioned to do that. And so, my applications to the TEDx talks, because each one's different, it's a whole different venue. You have to apply separately. So I did 25 applications in this last batch, and it was okay. I'm talking about first responders mental health, and about 2 months later, I got two emails. So I got two talks back to back. Like,
Nice.
holy shit! So I called my coach. I'm like, what do I do? She goes, same topic, different talks. And I
Mhm.
was like, okay. So I wrote the first talk, did it, then came home right away, wrote the second talk, and then did it. It was 5 months of it was probably the hardest I've worked in terms of, like, I'm making my bows and arrows. I told you about that stuff, or my flutes, and I'm always want to do a little tinker on that. And I'm just like, nope, go back to this paragraph, read it, fucking get that transition, and just so I could represent when I got on stage. But writing the talks itself, really, I think I was telling you before, I had so much shame, guilt, breaking the code of silence, all these things that I had to overcome to even
Yeah.
put words to paper.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah,
Yeah, it's
so
definitely one of those things that, you know, like you mentioned, you looked at yourself in the mirror and you saw a guy who you didn't even recognize. That right there is super powerful because you actually had the conscious awareness to even think about where you are, who you've become, and possibly how numb you have become to all of it. A lot of the times we respond to things and we don't even really have the capabilities in the moment of realizing what it is that we actually did. And you mentioned saving people, as your time as a paramedic, that's happens all the time. All of the time we are entering into homes and we're helping people, and sometimes we bring people back, sometimes they pass away. For a lot of people, they just kind of a lot of first responders, they just, hey man, this is just kind of what it is. Never truly reflect on the delicacy of life, how important a life is, and we just kind of get numb to the the job. So it's something that you touched on also, where firefighter mental health and wellness is something that isn't really spoken about because of the stigma of, hey, do your job, shut up, we're not going to talk about this outside of the cone of silence, right? And I think the fire department has gotten a lot better with that, especially where I work. And not to say that this isn't happening everywhere. We do take the time to talk about these things, post a unusually traumatic call, and that's kind of subjective, right? Some people think some things are more traumatic than others, but I still see it. I still see it in social media. I just saw a post, maybe, I don't know, a week or two ago, where this guy is just doing a little selfie rant on a grown man is sitting here talking about, oh, my experience as a firefighter, I saw something very traumatic, and I saw a family suffering, and this guy was just kind of poking fun at, like, yeah, that's what we do. It's you got to be tough, and why are you talking about it? Why are you getting on social media talking about these things? You should just be quiet. You're doing it for likes, you're doing it for shares, you're doing it for followers. And I was like, golly, man, some things.
Well, you bring up, I'm going to guess that he's a single function firefighter, that he's not a paramedic, because
Yeah.
you said you talk about this stuff, but we don't talk about it at LA. Like, well, at least when I was there, I remember being on the headset, Tiller in the truck, rookies like, whoa, shit, I can't believe, it's triple shooting or whatever, really gnarly thing. And he's just, and the captain's like, shut the fuck up, no puke talk on the rig. I mean, ever. So you didn't even talk about it. We had, the only time I remember any kind of response for mental health was the Chatsworth train. We had like 25 dead and just people
Oh yeah.
mangled. It was
Yeah.
gnarly. But they came by and made their rounds to all the stations, and it's like, I'm not going to talk to you, and uh you don't know. It's, if I were going to talk to somebody, it'd be somebody that lived it with me, or that's walked in the shoes. And that's what I'm finding right now. The conversations I'm having, when you have a conversation with another first responder, and especially like for me as a paramedic, or a firefighter paramedic, you know, there's an understand, you can tell people, civilians, about the things, but they can't understand what that really is, the sights and smells and
Yeah.
the things that just linger.
Yeah.
um, and
It's
well, anyway, but this idea of just being able to talk about it. And there is this dichotomy in the fire department. I just talked to a UK guy, same thing, where, the reason I mention is because I think for paramedics, not people that went and said, "Oh, I have to go now," firefighters that kind of got sent there, but people that gravitate to that first, it's a different thing, because you're specifically wanting to deal with people. That means dealing with emotions. That means dealing with
yeah.
humanity, right?
Yeah.
But as firefighters, yeah, that's part of the job, but it's not the thrust of where you're entering the water, where you're coming into the call. It's a very different mindset.
Yeah.
And I think, not to take anything away from a lot of single function firefighters, but I feel like you know, it's just not it's not where their focus is. It's not why they're doing the job. So you got a guy saying, "Shuck it up," or "Suck it up, Buttercup," whatever, all that stuff. Um, yeah, it doesn't. The reality is that, what is it? 90% of our calls are medical or trauma. Or a
Yeah.
huge amount, way more than the fires that we go on. So, to me, this I just never understood why we don't, like, we're already tough, we're already badass, right? We're fucking firefighters. Like, how more
Yeah.
badass can you get? But you got to keep proving to yourselves each day how tough you are. And I mean, we'll hopefully get into more of this, but when I was saying that I'm calm and all that stuff, it comes down to the frequencies, and and the stuff that we hold, the traumas that we have, those, they have frequency in our body. They're things that we have to get rid of, or have a way to let it flow out of us or through us. And to me, the the no-brainer way is for us to communicate with each other and go, yeah, that was gnarly, that scared me, that rocked me. Sometimes you see a call that just, you go, is terrifying. You don't see
Yeah.
it that way at the time, but as I look back, I'm like, wow, that was, because you see what the possibility is, what could happen to you or your family.
Yeah.
And people don't, they drive down the street and they're just, they're not seeing all the things that you see. um anyway.
Definitely. Definitely. In terms of calls and traumatic incidents, is there a specific incident for you that changed how you view the job? Is something that really, really stuck with you, or was it just more of a cumulative effect?
There are calls that I'll never, you know. So I worked as a paramedic in Oxnard, sleepy little beach town, right? I saw
Yeah,
more trauma, more overdose, more everything in every week. It was
yeah,
unbelievable, and I worked all over LA. Um, but there was this one road, Vineyard, where it's kind of like heavy traffic, like heavy trucks, a lot of that kind, cars and truck. It's a, what do you call it? One of those routes where it's just people are moving, trucks are moving, big, heavy trucks.
yeah.
And we went there a lot. But there's one call where this guy, he was just hammered. I guess it was the the Angels were played in the World Series, and um, so we get a call out for it. I'm just taking a bite of my lunch, hadn't had anything to eat, and we get a call for TC on Vineyard, and I knew right away. I was like, oh, I don't want to go on this call. I never had that feeling before. I was
Mm,
like, oh, I do not want to go on this call. We get there, the car, the tractor trailer, like a D9 tractor trailer, really for heavy duty. It's empty, but the trailer is just, he's making a left, and this guy was coming 90 miles an hour, hit the back wheels of that trailer, and there's nothing left of the front of the car. We were first on scene. My partner's checking for other victims. I go to the guy, and he's just taking his last breaths. He's got that green, massive crush, death look, kind of green, gray, bloated. He's just like, ugh. And I'm looking at the guy, and he's looking at me. And even if fire was unseen, there's no way to get him out. He's just part of the car.
yeah.
And in the frustration, the impotence of not being able to do anything. So a few weeks ago, my daughter wanted to go fishing, so we were going to take her up to Lake Casitas, and driving up Camarillo, getting closer to Oxnard, my body just starts shaking, and I start twitching and all this stuff, and I go, each exit, I'm seeing stuff, just like a movie, and then the closer I get to Vineyard, the more my body reacts, and by the time we got there, um, I was like, tears were just, looking at my daughter. She's singing her songs, but the reason I'm mentioning this call is because the frustration, the impotence, not being able to save him or do anything for him. Um, but something happened after that where I realized that I was there with him at one of the
Yeah.
most profound moments of his life, his death. And I could see it all, the regret, the love, the everything in his eyes, the oh shit, this is it.
Yeah.
And to be able to sit with him there, that's pretty, that's pretty fucking awesome, you know?
Yeah.
So I guess the way that I carry it changed where, um, I'm honored, to have been there. That's another element of, the stuff that we do. Maybe we don't save a life, but just, holding that hand or being there in that moment, it's powerful.
Yeah. No, definitely. Oxnard is a very, very busy town, and a lot of people have no idea what this little beach town. They just think, oh, it's over, it's near the beach, and it's like a farm town, kinda.
I
Oof,
got
my goodness.
agriculture,
Yeah,
arms ripped off, people, fainting, pregnant 12-year-olds, fainting in
yeah.
the strawberry fields. And then you got the
Oh,
El Rio and the Colonia boys fighting each
yeah.
other all the time. So
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
it's crazy.
Oxnard is a very, very active city. So, just a little bit of information for anybody who didn't know that. But
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's a very, very powerful call, man. That's a powerful experience and it's real. And
Yeah.
dealing with it is, well, going through it and helping and doing the best that you can is one thing. But you talked about reliving it. You talked about the visual of the street. You talked about as you approached the street, how it made you feel, the sensations that you had, all of these things that not a lot of people can really relate to except for another first responder, somebody who has lived that. And so dealing with that stuff, carrying it is a whole other, that's a whole other ball game, man. So what I try to do and what I try to help firefighters and first responders is, yeah, we see these traumatic things, but how do we deal with them? Like, we are in it day to day. How are you going to deal with it? How can you deal with it? So for me, I always talk to my significant other, or I talk to the members on the crew that, that experienced it together. I'm very much a believer in the health, wellness, and fitness. So I think going to the gym and working out and walking and doing all these things. But what's something that you did and to like really process these things, process these difficult calls, and manage the day-to-day stress of being a firefighter? Because like you said, you did it combined for 20 years. What were some of the things that you did to deal with it?
3 words: suck it up. Honestly, I did. No, I wasn't taught. What I realized on that drive was like when I drive into LA, it's everywhere I go. I have to not talk about it because I'm with other people, but for me it's like, oh, this bump 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 bump. But anyway, Oxnard, which I really never go there. What I realized is that was stuff that I never, probably the most trauma I dealt with in my career in a confined time frame. But I forgot all about it. I remember this guy went to paramedic school. We ended up working together, and this one morning, he came to relieve me, and I was late because I'd apparently gone to like a 2-year-old drowning. The mother was there, freaking out. And I get out of the rig, and he said, because I called him when I was doing the TEDx talk, and I go, hey, I wanted to see if he had any stories. And he goes, I remember you getting out of the rig, and your eyes were like saucers, and you're just like, I got to get home. I got to see my kids.
Yeah.
And he goes, dude, I had no tools. Like, I didn't know what to do, but I could see you were fucked up. And I don't even remember that call, but this is for me. There was the culture, it was the interaction most, with captains and other firefighters that was the forefront of what I see as the trauma that I carried. So getting to the actual calls and the things that I saw and witnessed and experienced, it's like that's a whole nother layer that um, I'm still processing. I'm getting to that. But and then there's this whole chunk from Oxnard that I don't even remember. I didn't even know. I think about LA, and so and like I was saying before, it's like we literally carry little bags of this each one with us. So where I'm at now, it's like, yeah, it's nothing's going to go away. This is stuff that I will carry. We will carry for our the rest of our days. And how do we carry it? I guess that's where I'm at right now. And I think if tears come, they come. I don't really give a shit anymore. I don't want this in my body. I don't want to carry stuff that's not mine. And yeah, I can, like I was saying earlier, own that stuff, and take pride in that I got to do that and I got to be there for people. but uh, but not to be um, crushed by it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely something that people carry differently. And you talked about the culture of the firehouse and how it rewards the emotional toughness. It rewards the firefighter that basically can shrug it off externally, but internally, maybe not so much. So it's kind of that tough guy front that a lot of firefighters put on. I can specifically say that about myself because for a long time that's what I did. Carried it. Oh, that's nothing. That doesn't affect me. That's just part of the job. I worked in a very busy area for as an EMT for 5 years, city of Compton,
I knew you were going to
and
say that.
yeah,
You're Carson or Compton.
yeah, and
AMR, baby.
and so these calls and these mass shootings that you just never hear about, these school shootings that are frequent that seem to not make the news. Um, you, you know, all that stuff. How do you carry it, man? And you touched on a topic of the captains and how a captain can create a space where it's okay to talk about these things that are affecting you.
It
Maybe
can also
individual.
create a hostile environment
Yeah,
as well. So
yeah. How
it has
can
the captains
leadership?
have so much to do, in my opinion. So a good friend of mine, um, my daughter picked her up. We were going to go ice skating back into Simi Valley, and she's like, "The firefighters came today, and I drew a picture, and I want to put it on the refrigerator at your old station." And I was like, "No, we got to go do the other thing." And she's like, "No, we're going." I was like, okay, totally out of the way. But I go back, I see my old crew, everybody, and this other one of this guy, good friend, and he came out in the end. He'd been in there working, and his eyes were just dead. And I went, "Oh my God, what did they do to you?" Because I know that with the COVID and all this stuff they were doing with the fire. But this guy, he was dead three weeks later,
Mm,
and
wow.
I ran into his captain at like the Do It Center, and we're talking, and he said we talked about this, told him what I'm kind of getting into, and he said, "Yeah, they told me to send everybody home that day, the whole crew. They said send them home." He said, "No, I'm not sending them home. I'm keeping them here. We're going to talk about it." And
Yeah.
and that is such a stud move. It takes so much more courage to do that. It takes such balls as a captain to say, "No, screw you, department. I'm going to take care of my crew."
Yeah.
And then I was just thinking the other night about how, as his captain, right, he knew this guy really well, worked with him for years, and it must be. I mean, I can't imagine what he must be thinking. Where did I drop the ball? Where did I? How did I allow this to happen? I mean, even if it's not his, but I'm thinking that when you have a responsibility like that, man, um, that must be really heavy, even more so than another member, another friend. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
No, that leadership in all of this is always make or break. It can lead firefighters into a space where they feel safe and where they can begin to reset and basically reclaim their mental health on a daily basis, or leadership can ignore it and can allow it just to fester and allow it to basically lead guys and gals down a spiral. So I am a firm believer, like you, that leadership plays a big role. However, it's also leadership in the firehouse where it's not necessarily just a captain. It can be a older member,
Yeah,
a
sure.
more seasoned member to take a younger member who maybe is showing some signs, maybe is displaying things that he's seen before, takes him to the side and, hey, let's talk about this. And it doesn't always have to be this route of, all right, let's get all of these programs involved, let's get all of these people involved. It can just be the person to person connection, which a lot of the times is, I feel, more powerful, and it's worth actually more because you have that person to person connection, and it's real, man. It's so real, where
Yeah.
there's nothing for this other person to gain. It's just, I'm here for you because I care for you. And a lot of the times, showing another person that you care for them, showing them that you're there and that you'll listen and that you've seen similar things and how you handled it, gosh, that's kind of the preferred route, I think, where, hey, we don't have to involve anybody. And fortunately, I've had that in older members that have taken me under their wing and, guided me through, some difficult situations and calls and incidents where I was like, dude, I am pretty jacked up from this. And I've been that guy for younger members in my department where, hey, I'm going through this thing. It doesn't even have to be a traumatic call. It could just be a life situation where I'm having trouble with my significant other and we just can't get to, see eye to eye. And what do you do? And I'm getting force hired so many times, and that's creating a big, big problem at home. How do you handle it? What do you do? And so it doesn't necessarily have to be these traumatic things. It's just all of the other little things behind the scenes that come with being a firefighter that kind of loosely touches on your TEDx, right? Where you talk about the human connection, person, personal connection, and why that's so important.
Yeah, well, just the feeling that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Because for me, it comes so this culture when I was working, anywhere I worked, the culture like you're saying, how do you deal with this stuff? I didn't know that you had to deal with it. Like it's a job, you know?
Yeah.
So I didn't
Yeah.
look at it that way. How am I, handling my mental health? These are all words that they didn't exist, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So um, so this is all kind of new. Thinking about how you deal with this on the job, you got to change the culture. And my second TEDx talk was all about, where did this culture come from? Where did we get this idea that the hero takes it all on and just, he's armor and then he just rides off into the sunset? Well, it came from the Industrial Revolution 250 years ago through World War I, and being tough and the mechanized warfare and all this shit that we'd never seen in humanity before. Slaughtered people, thousands, and the way they were slaughtered, and stiff upper lip, and then World War II. Coming out of World War II, you had John Wayne. That's the hero type, and we've followed that. And if you look at the science behind it, it is the most, if you wanted to kill people and make them diseased and miserable, this is the culture you'd adopt. This fucking macho
Sheesh.
culture. No, I'm not, I'm telling you, because you go on the
Yeah.
calls you go on, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's a sense of, even when you're not busy, right? Let's say you don't even get a call a day, there's still that part of you that's ready, right? you ready to respond. You can't relax. You're in a state of fight or flight to some degree, more than the normal person, because you know that at any seconds, and that's just in the back of your, that's just running. So your cortisol, adrenaline levels are elevated. When you're coming back from a call, and now you're thinking about the shit you're going to take from the guys at the station, just normal banter, like when you've just seen a 13-year-old shoot his other buddy by accident in the drive-by, and and you're coming back to the station, and what you're thinking about is the shit you got to deal with the guys. So your cortisol levels are pinned all the time. Then when you're at home thinking about coming back, for me, I'm talking about a lot about the culture, because it wasn't really about the calls for me. It was about the captains and the relationship with the crew and whatever that kind of thing was going on there. Um, Far outweighed the calls that I went on. And when I go on it all, man, you see it all, right? So
Yeah.
um, so that wasn't ever a thing. I was like, yeah, I went on calls. That was my job, da da da. But that wasn't the thing. It didn't. I didn't. There were times, calls I went on. Oh shit! But then you go on the next call, three, four more calls, and you don't even remember that
Yeah, you
call.
forget.
And yeah,
Yeah.
right. And then a week later, you're like, oh shit, that was really gnarly. Um,
Yeah.
so um, so this is kind of, I don't know how you deal with on the job. What I would say, and the reason, like, I've had opportunities to work one on one. I don't want to work one on one. I want to change the culture, because if you want to change the way, the rate of suicide in first responders, to me that's the number one thing. What you're talking about, talk to another member, you know, just letting it out, being having the safety to do that, and then them saying, "Yeah, man, me too. This other thing kind of screwed me up." Oh, so we're not alone. It forms a closer bond. So we're in everything we do is team, right? We wash the dishes together. We sleep in the dorm room together. We wipe down the rigs. We train. We go to the calls. We do everything together. We work out together. Um, but we're all separate individuals because we can't connect on the human level of just like, hey, bro, how's it going? You talked about, I forgot exactly what you're saying, but it's anything that shows emotion. Like, let's say you're talking about, hey, oh yeah, my wife, we're having struggles, and the overtime's making it worse, and that kind of thing. That is expressing emotion. So if you say, wow, look at that full moon, how bitching is that? That's expressing emotion, which is disallowed, or was for the most part in when I was then. And I think maybe things have changed now, but this whole idea that you can only talk about things that don't touch on emotion, um, this is what I'm finding out now. That you're it's not that you're saying something necessarily wrong or bad. It's just that that statement carries with it um, emotion. So beauty, art, they're the same as grief, or um, what we call weakness if a call affected us too deeply. They're all interrelated, and I think that's why the conversation is so limited in the fire in the first responder world, I think, altogether, because any way that you touch on emotion, or that you have emotion, it's like, oh, you're a pussy. We don't
Yeah.
talk that way. And just that whole idea, um, it obliterates any connection between us. So we're actually these teams of people that are all operating individually and all scared to share anything, and harboring our own stuff so that we don't look weak, or we don't um, become other or outside of the group, the herd. I
Yeah.
don't know if that makes much sense, but
Yeah. No,
something I'm discovering.
we definitely don't want to be outcast, and we while you're inside, man, I can tell you, you don't want to be the person that everybody looks at as a weak one.
Yeah.
Even though we all know it's kind of BS, and we all know that it's not even important being in the game as I currently am. Like, you don't want to be that guy, even though I know better. I know better. I don't even care. I know better. And I still am like, okay.
But don't
But
you think it takes more courage and more toughness to be able to me it's like you got to take a crap or something, you do that. You get it out of you, right? So you're at the station in between calls and it's like, ah, whatever.
yeah,
You're going back out on the call, man. It's not like you
yeah,
can't do anything anymore.
yeah,
But if you want to talk about resilience and being healthy on the job, it's taking the shit that you're carrying and taking a shit, getting it out of you in
getting it
some way
out.
or
Yeah,
another, because otherwise it's stuck in you.
yeah,
And if you're not getting it out, if you're not processing it in some way, whether it's the calls or the culture, the whatever it might be, or the interaction with the captain or another, you know, you're carrying that and you're carrying it to the next call you go on. So this poor lady that, is just, I don't know, it's just an idiot and doesn't know how to drive and repark her car or something. You're like, you're so stupid. You bring that to the call with you. And as it
mm-hmm.
starts to accumulate, you start to bring it to every call. And then you start to bring it to work when you get there and now you're ready.
Yeah,
And you just spiral into bitterness and anger and people are stupid, and
yeah,
you know and the whole reason you got into this in the first place is so far from who you are now.
yeah. Oh man, definitely, definitely is something that, like I've said earlier, you have to have some type of self reflection. You have to have moments where you look in the mirror and you ask yourself, why am I here? Why am I doing this? What is the purpose of me doing this? Am I here to help? Am I doing the best I can to help? Or am I just collecting a paycheck? Now, hey, man, I cannot fault guys if they're collecting a paycheck because, hey, man, like they're just like, well, what else am I going to do? I cannot, I can't explain that. And I don't have the answer to that. That's something that the individual will have to answer. However, if you're in a role or fulfilling a capacity that you're dealing with people, such as a paramedic on an RA, you gotta show that compassion. You gotta show that you care about people because being a medic is a connection, it's a people connection job.
Yeah.
All of the calls that you go on are not going to be full cardiac arrests. They're not going to be stabbings, shootings, traumatic calls. A lot of them, especially in today's day and age, like yesterday, man, we ran I don't know how many anxieties. Oh my goodness. And our medics, kudos to them. They understand that. And they were able to be patient, and really try to connect. And if the person isn't trying to connect, you do not let that go because they have their purpose. Now, that patience is finite for all of us, but then it goes back to the self reflection. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why do I want to help people? What am I trying to accomplish with this? And if it's just to collect a paycheck, and if it's just for money, then there's other jobs in the fire department where you can really focus on, hey, I just want to do the fire stuff. I just want to do the rope stuff. I just want to do the whatever technical rescue stuff. There's other capacities where you don't have to deal with people, but it does require self-reflection, like you said. Now, just to touch on the firefighter suicide, because you did talk about that stuff, it's something that is prevalent in the fire department, man, and it is something that is so sad because It's a decision that a person makes to end his or her life because of something that they're going through. And talking about mental health and talking about these issues for me is something that is important because I do have those self reflection moments where it's like, not even the fire department. It's like, why am I doing this podcasting thing? Why am I doing this social media thing? Why? What in the heck? Like, what am I doing? Then I revert back to I want to help. I want to help my brothers and sisters, not only with their physical fitness, but also with their mental well being. And if me talking about my struggles and the things that I've gone through can help one person stop whatever it is that they were going to do or what they were thinking about doing and just asking for help and just finding a different route and finding a different avenue and seeking the help, if I just help one person, then all of this work that I've done and I'm doing and that I'm building, it's all well worth it for me. So you've touched on the firefighter suicide in your talks, and you took a deep dive. And what are some of the things that you saw that really stood out to you?
Well, um, it's really interesting. Think in one of the talks I talk about a girl who she was at an adjacent station. We see each other on the pile and stuff like that. I knew she was going through it. I was in a really rough place too. I ended up getting run out of the station, um, and we were gonna talk. She was like, "Hey, my landlord, you grew up with him," so there was a connection there. So anyway, we were gonna talk. I got ran out of that station to this back downtown to MacArthur Park, and she called, and I knew why she was calling. I was like, "Man, I got nothing for you," so I didn't pick up. And then she ended up taking her life a few weeks later. But and then other people that I'd worked closely with, two other people, a captain and another firefighter. But it never occurred to me, even though I knew I was going through some really dark shit. It never, I never connected it with me. That they were going. I felt alone in my whatever I was going through, even though she was going through. I knew what she was going through. Um, but somehow I didn't connect it until much later after I left the fire department. I think when you were talking about suicide, again, it's like, I don't think you can do that if you don't feel completely alone, completely cut off from everything else, you know? Um, or, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I know that when you can't reach out because every fiber of it goes against every fiber of your being to break the code of silence or to this honor code that you've lived by, to suck it up. I mean, that's the understanding we get in the job. We're going to do it and just suck it up. um, it's You can see how that leads directly to suicide. If somebody does start spiraling, there is no way back for them unless they do start seeking help. But we're just A, not built that way. B, it's frowned upon, maybe less now. There's conversation about it and stuff, but there's all these, again, it's the culture. Because of the culture, in my thing, we changed the culture. We actually had a culture of brotherhood where you talk, say, hey, bro, I got you no matter what, man. You got shit going on in your life. Let's talk about it. We'll between calls or whatever. Just I'm here and let's actively do this, not just if something happens. Let's talk about anything. Why are we limiting what we can talk about? Talk about art, talk about music, talk about things that make you feel. And you know what? you're a way more of a badass if you can go into this stuff and feel and have compassion with patients, with other people, with other members. It's so much stronger of a human being. It takes so much more strength to be able to do that than to just shut down and turn everything off, because that's not what happens. So it really comes back to exactly what you're saying, the culture, making it a culture of let's talk about this. We're seeing stuff that normal people don't see. Even veterans will tell you, yeah, we go to war, we see our buddies shot, we all kinds of horrible things, but then that's over. It's short amounts of time. This is cumulative, day after day, call after call after call after call after call, with no end ever, and thousands more people waiting behind that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you want to, it seems so simple and so basic to me that we got to start talking. We got to have the brotherhood that we all think we're joining. We got to actually create that culture. And and yeah, man, we need to be badass. We need to be suck it up. I mean, yeah, if we weren't doing the job, we wouldn't
All
be
of
able
the
to do the
above.
job. Yeah, it's all the above,
Yeah.
but we need that too. And sure, you need to compartmentalize and stuff. You can't just break down, when this call and you got another call and stuff like that. It's not what we're really talking about. We're talking about having a constant like tap that you can just open, to just download. And like you were saying, your story, just by you telling your story, look what happened to me. I heard Robert's story and changed my life,
Yeah.
changed my life completely. And now that eventually got me starting to talk about it. Here I am talking to you about it. And we're two people talking about this stuff. And yeah, I think what you're doing is phenomenal, dude. And if nothing else, just to have the courage to speak out loud about these things that are so taboo or have been so taboo. And you there's so many firefighters struggling. You talk about the statistics. A firefighter is 3 times more likely to die by suicide than to be killed in the line of duty. They're it's so over the top. I actually think, I'm not positive about this, but I think that suicide is the number one killer of active duty firefighters.
Yeah, I'd have to double check on that statistic, but I know that actual house fires where things go terribly bad is not the top, right? A lot of people would think, hey, you go to a fire and that's where firemen are getting killed.
Well, heart attacks too, right? That's a
Heart
big one.
attacks are most definitely number one. And it's down the line, way down the line, where an actual house fire or a incident,
Explosion,
yeah, explosion or something like that, where those things do happen, but they're
fall off the
not the
ladder.
number one killer, right? And the stress of not only the calls, but the stress and the taxing on your body, that waking up 2 to 3 to 4 times per night over the course of many years, what it does to your cortisol and
Hmm.
your hormones are all out of whack. And I can speak to it today because I just got off of work this morning and I got home. We got up a few times last night and it was like, I'm here, but I'm just kind of in this other zone. And this other zone, if you're not aware of it, can lead you in a bunch of different ways, dude. But you got to be aware of this zone. And if you're trying to like do too much, then this zone will lead you down. Like, if visiting this zone constantly, 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 and if you're not aware of like, hey, I need to recover, then you're going to run yourself into the ground and you're going to get into this funky place, man, in this
Dude,
funky
I think
place.
that's what happened to me. I just took it and took it until I couldn't anymore because my whole mentality was, yeah, suck it up, fucking do your job, show up, give it your best. And there was no thought about caring for myself. And when it gets to there, even physically,
Yeah,
even all these other ways, your body breaks down. And
yeah,
I mean, I'm just a perfect example of I just happen to be alive. I didn't cap myself, but I I pushed through and just I was like, there's something better out there. There's a better way to live. There's and I'm gonna find it. And
yeah,
we're not taught that. Nobody tells you that. They tell you do your job and then retire and die. And
right.
that's kind of the life plan. And it's like, man, I'm not letting these little fuckers, you know, I'm not.
Yeah,
Somebody greater than you gave me this gift of life, and I'm not going to squander it.
yeah,
And at the time I was like 50 something, so I also, what happened for me was like, you're going to die intellectually, your whole life, but there comes a point where you go, and I think it was that day, when that mirror moment where it was like, oh, this is real. Like this is going to happen. And not only that, it's going to happen sooner rather than later, because I've already lived 50 something years. So probably lived most of my life already. So how do I want to live the last part of my life? I don't want to be sick, old, and poor. Those are the three things that I don't want to be. And so together at the same time.
mm,
So um, yeah, uh, that was kind of my
yeah,
goal.
yeah. And you touched on the topic there of you touched on the topic earlier on creative expression and how music and through sound and how art, all of these things have helped you, and I've seen it in your stuff. I don't know, I don't know too much about what you do, but I know that what you've mentioned, you've mentioned the arts and the creative expression. And for me, a lot of the time, for most of my life, creative expression wasn't really something that I thought was important. I didn't think it was really necessary. I just kind of was like, work and do what you have to do. But now, as I'm getting older, and now I have begun my own creative expression through content and through podcasts and through talking and through all of these creative outlets. I see how important music and being creative is. It doesn't have to be this imagined thing where you perceive it as, oh, that's just whatever, it's just artsy fartsy. No, dude, like it's something that is within all of us, and it's expressed differently. So what has creative expression done for you, and how has it helped you?
God, well, I was telling you that I make bows and arrows, primitive style bows and arrows,
Yeah,
kind of modeled after the Comanche, the way they did it, some of the Native American tribes.
yeah,
And well, I back in my day, we used to play cowboys and Indians,
yeah,
and I always wanted to be the Indian. And because I just guns were never my thing. It's just that the simplicity of the bow. So when I turned after I left the fire department, I just went to Alaska and I bought a bow, a recurve bow, and I don't know what the hell I was doing, but started shooting it. I started watching YouTube and this way that we shoot and everything. And then, but I love ancient history and warfare, and especially the use of the bow throughout history,
yeah,
from the English longbow to the Comanche to the Turkish horse art. I mean, it's fascinating history.
yeah,
And so I started learning how. they made the bows. And the one way to make it is you take a stave of wood, right? And you scrape the bark off and you scrape the softwood off and you get down to one hardwood ring. You know how that has rings around the tree, each one? You
Yeah.
scrape it down, you get that, and that becomes, that hardwood ring becomes the back of the bow. So it's got that snap. And what I'm finding is you're not cutting things, you're working with the wood. So it's teaching you, telling you what it wants. Whether there's a knot here, you got to go around that, or a dip, or maybe the whole bow goes like this, and it's following that. And I just drop in for hours.
That's so
Um,
cool, man.
and the more I get into it, the more I'm working with like elk sinew and making hide glue and taking shit off the pine trees and mixing that with um, charcoal that I made myself, and beeswax, and this is incredibly, to put the arrowheads on, and finding such connection with nature, and with, it's just an incredible um, I don't know, experience. And it also, I feel like I'm really understanding myself, and like this connection with God, whatever God is for us, it
Yeah.
source, just feeling connected. Um,
Ooh.
and then also,
Yeah.
like, I'm sitting at my mom's
Love it.
piano that she used to have, and I'm not a piano player, but just playing this thing and listening to the sound, it just, and singing, um, it just, yeah, all of this feels great. And I'm working on writing, so I'm writing a book, writing these talks and stuff, all these different things. So when I'm working on the bows, or when I'm doing some sort of mindless exercise, like without mind, all this stuff filters through, and then I can go back and just, it's all set in my mind. It sort of gives everything a chance to breathe and sort of organize, just settle in, rather than everything just being chaotic. I don't know,
Yeah.
somehow. Those are the kind of things right now for me. That I'm also making bamboo flutes. Um, so you've got, man, it's incredible to make, sound out of this thing that you just burn some holes in, and beautiful, incredible sound. It's crazy. So I'm
Yeah.
really digging that kind of stuff. And I could see, I think I did that when I was on the job. Grabbed a painting. I didn't like it, so I turned it over and started painting. And I went through this whole phase of doing that. So, not that I'm a painter by any means at all. I like to paint waves.
Yeah.
That's my,
Yeah.
but but the experience of it just, something where, yeah, I think they have this expression in like martial arts, but no mind. Like, that's all I can really, you're not thinking about, you're just in the moment. Yeah. You're just in
Yeah.
flow. When you can get in those moments of flow,
Yeah.
where just, you're not thinking, it's just happening. I think
Yeah,
that's
man.
important.
Yeah. Um, being in flow and spirituality and God, all of these different things. And for me, I can say I grew up in the faith. I grew up Catholic, got away from my faith in my late teens, early 20s, reconnected in my mid 30s, and I am very much connected with my source. For me, my faith is God and Jesus Christ. That isn't to say that, other people can't have their beliefs. That's just for me, my spirituality, my flow,
Yeah.
and where I can wake up, connect with nature, and not just connect, but it's a basically a conversation I have every morning of gratitude, of love,
Yeah.
with my creator. And that just gives me so much flow and so much energy and so much of a mental, physical, spiritual reset every single day.
Hmm.
And the more I connect, the deeper the more I search, the more I search, the more I pray, the more I it's a very beautiful thing now. I understand that there's many different ways that people can perceive God or understand God or believe whatever they want to believe, the universe. But I definitely do think as I've aged, man, it's just so much deeper for me. And I can't really put it into words, this flow that and this emotional high that I do not need any any outside substance. Like it's just praying and connecting gives me this feeling of just flow, like you said. And that has taken me out of some deep dark places too. Um, so I definitely believe that God, whatever it may mean to you, to others, is the infinite source of love.
Yes.
It's
Yep.
just
That's
love,
it. Yeah. That's Jesus's message. Everything
love.
else
Yeah.
is, yeah, I agree.
So yeah, man.
I'm
It's
glad you
a
got there as a Catholic. That's hard to do.
yeah. Well, I've um I guess switched or we are my
Well,
wife
it's
and I,
more
my
of a
family.
spiritual connection, it
Yeah,
sounds like, than having
we're
so much to
Christian
do
now.
with
Yeah,
religion, you know,
yeah,
that, and that's where I think I think the religion part is where everybody gets screwed up. It's like,
yeah,
I do think Jesus' message, and it's even in the Western Bible, the kingdom of heaven is within you, right? He said
yeah,
that. The kingdom of heaven is within you. That means you don't have to go through all this religion or another a priest or somebody that's ordained. No, I believe that it's a direct personal connection for all
yeah,
of us. I mean, it's like you said, source, where we come from, where we're returning to, and and I I have never I was not did not grow up religious, or I'd say I was pretty spiritual. Um, Always felt like I had a conversation with sort of, I don't know if it was my consciousness or a higher power or whatever, but as this has developed more for me, it's this real sense again of not being alone,
yeah,
of knowing that, and I that's just one of the reasons I feel calm now. It's like I know he's got me, and that,
yes,
and
yes,
I can relax, I can let go.
yes,
One thing that really always kind of stopped me was, they say you need to ask Jesus for forgiveness, and you need to ask Jesus, and to me, it's like asking for help. It's like, well, does not make me a pussy, you know, if I'm asking for help. So I don't know. It's kind of weird, but I think that was a lot um, of my um, reticence um, to asking Jesus to come in and forgive my sins and do these things for me.
yeah,
Very hard. So
yeah,
anyway, I did a deep dive into what I could find about Jesus and about what his message was, and to me, it is one word: love.
love, yeah,
And in that it's our personal connection with that source.
yes,
Um, And yeah, religion doesn't play a whole much part for me anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely for me. Also, it is a spiritual connection. It just happens to be a Christian. We attend
Hmm.
Christian church, but it's more of a Bible for me, and it's just the spirit, the connection I have with God and Jesus is what I guess identify with, not so
Yeah,
much a structured religion.
yeah. But that's what I think. This is what's important, right? It's the personal connection, feeling connected, not just going to church, not just following the religion, but finding a way to be connected in a personal way. That's life changing to me.
Yeah.
Has been life changing.
Oh,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
100%. Um, so yeah, so you did mention in our conversation we had the other day about sound and music and how it has helped you heal.
Hmm.
And I just wanted to maybe expand on that just a little bit. We got a few minutes left here. We've been talking for an hour and a half, so
Yeah.
I don't want to take too
Yeah.
much of your time, but I
Well,
felt
this
like,
is yeah. Um, so like I was talking about, you're driving down the street, you see things other people don't see.
yeah,
So this is after my mom died. My sister had moved to North Carolina, and uh, she was driving. She's driving fine, but she's like, blah, 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 and we're driving next to the semi. I'm like, either pass him or stay behind, look out at this intersection. That guy could turn left. I'm seeing all this stuff. She looks over and she's like, you are fucked up. And I'm white knuckling it over there, thinking, oh God, we're going to die anytime. So when I got back to Los Angeles, she texted me and told me to show up at this address tomorrow, wear comfortable clothes. So I did, and met this little guru guy. He's Israeli. I could barely understand him. A really sweet guy. He sat me down. He said, "I'm going to give you some supplements." Turned out there was magic mushrooms, like little capsules, and then MDMA was the other thing. We did some deep breathing, uh, really powerful stuff, and listened to this guy talking. And then tells me I'm going to play these different instruments. You've got the Tibetan singing bowls. These are like these ancient bowls, and the gong. Um, these are overtonal instruments, meaning that they're creating all these frequencies, this array of frequency that goes below and above what we can actually hear. The buffalo drum, it's like a shower of frequency. You got the drone instruments, like this thing called the Shruti box, which you start humming with it. It's just mind blowing. But each instrument is a completely different sort of world. And what happens? So I studied with him and the guy that invented this. A couple of things. The mushrooms we know, it definitely puts you in a connection with a higher source. But it also, we know that it rewires your brain. It literally regrows neurons right at the axons where they connect. So, and further, they've just done this research at not Cambridge, something like that, where they took the psilocybin and they put it on uh, um, rabies virus. And because the rabies goes from the periphery into this core, they found that they wanted to know where, if there was any organization to the way that these neurons are built when they take the mushrooms. And what they found was that yes, they go to these places where, just long story short, 10 to 15% it makes our life improve, and 10 to 15% the things that are keeping us back, it improves that, like the way we talk to ourselves, the anger that we
yeah,
have, different things like that, right? So and then the MDMA, it opens the heart, but it shuts down the amygdala, which is the fear control center. So let's say I have a trauma, like the guy from the vineyard thing, and that comes up, my body goes into full fight or flight. I re-experience all those things that I experienced there. Um, so when you take the MDMA, your amygdala wants to shut that memory down, doesn't want to go there. But because of this, it can come up and
For
out.
real.
So
Yeah.
what happens with these different instruments, this is my belief and what I know of the science. This is what the science says as well. Every single thing, these traumas that we have, or that we went on a call, boom, that's like a little hook. Let's say it's like a little hook, and it's got energy. It's got a frequency. It has a frequency. It's an actual thing in our body that has its own frequency. So it exists within us. So what happens with these instruments is that one of those frequencies will hit that, whatever that frequency of that trauma was. It'll stimulate it. And it gets really uncomfortable in the body. You may not know what it is. You just know that your body's like something's happening.
Yeah.
And then, it may go on for half an hour, 40 minutes. And then all of a sudden, you just start relax your whole body, your
Yeah.
breathing, and you're just like, and then there'll be a few minutes of silence, and then start on a whole nother instrument. And I remember this one part where I was watching a Rolodex, sort of like faces, like, somebody go real fast, all these faces going really fast. And I didn't have any personal connection. I didn't recognize the faces. I just knew that it was death leaving my body.
Mm.
That's all I can tell you is like, oh,
Wow.
because my body was going like literally in convulsions, but my mind was calm and just going, oh, that's really interesting. This is what's
Wow.
happening. Yeah, it was
Wow.
crazy, dude. I'm like,
That's
oh,
pretty
so
wild.
this is death leaving the, okay, that's neat. And then, and sometimes you don't know. And sometimes it's just bliss. It
Yeah.
doesn't all have to be stimulating the trauma, but that is part of it. It's a huge part of it, and it has to do with the frequencies, and that's what I was saying. And even they say that the frequency of like anger and shame are very low frequencies.
Yeah.
Um, we have no way to measure that, so that's actually bullshit. But
Mm.
you can just feel that it's true, right? You know that when you're depressed and down or bitter or angry, you're in a very low vibration. When you're
Yeah.
when you're literally humming, and think you're in flow, you're in a
Yeah.
high, that things are vibrating,
Yeah.
at a higher level when you're feeling joy and stuff like that. So, um, but this again, the spiritual connection too, all of this is frequency. Like, what do you think heaven, or going back to sources, do you think it's a physical form? Hell no. It's got to be some realm of light, sound, frequency. It's all waves, right? Whether it's light or
Yeah.
sound, those are all frequencies.
Yeah.
So um, I feel like Tesla said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of frequency, vibration, and sound. I think something like that. And the more I think about that, the more I learn about this, the more I let go and let God, the more I see that it's all about frequency. If you want to rate, even disease has frequency. This also, with these music, these instruments, the diseased cells in our bodies, they reproduce diseased cells. Well, these just so many things about sound and frequency, where they know that they can blast tumors now with certain frequencies. They can do all kinds. This is ancient knowledge that we're just relearning now,
Yeah.
and proving and stuff like that. So we're in a really amazing time. But there are so many ways that this frequency operates in our lives and in how we want our lives to operate, or what frequency we want to operate. And that was another thing. I want to live at a higher frequency. And I feel like the frequency that we came from, that we're going to return to, let's call it the God frequency or the source frequency. I feel like I want to raise my frequency in this lifetime as close to that as I can. That's kind of the way I view it, because that's the only way I can really see it, about when we go back, what happens when we lose this physical body. Something, our consciousness. What is consciousness? Is that the thing? Is that our soul? Is that like, any of that. We don't know, but you got to think that it has that it's in another sort of realm of a frequency or um, in some degree.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's a lot of stuff, and we can definitely get into that. We can open up a whole box of just great ideas and just theories and things that I've seen and read and really dove deep on because I've also been very intrigued with the frequency and with your energy and the energy that you put out and the
Yeah.
energy that you receive and how
Yes,
you
that's a
receive
huge
the
one.
energy, right? If you receive some energy from somebody and it's not good, what does it make you want to do? You're like, oh, dude, I don't want to be around this
Well,
person. It's just bad
also,
energy.
I know that for me, um, I didn't letting love in, asking for help, um, like I could love, but I had a hard time receiving it. So this is something I'm learning to do in different ways to allow that stuff to come back in. So it's a flow and not just outward. But I don't know. That's because of my own fucked upness. Maybe other people don't have that, um, but it's something I realize it's like, oh, I need to actively allow this stuff or decide to, but the stuff that is good, let it in. It's
Yeah,
okay. But I
yeah,
want to just get back. I think the one thing, the most important thing, in my opinion, to that this is all about is that we need to talk to each other
yeah.
and be there for each other as human beings, and get off our little macho horse and just, yeah, we're fucking tough. We wouldn't be here doing this job if we weren't. You know.
Yeah.
So um, I think somehow opening the conversation, widening it, and getting, because it really is this idea that you're not alone. I mean, it's so powerful because as firefighters, we're all alone. And in the job where everyone thinks we got each other's back, man, but in the heart, in the core of who we are, we have to be alone. We can't share this because what you said, you don't want to be weak. We'll be seen as weak and we'll be cast out of the herd,
Right.
and so if there's anything that I would like your audience to be left with is that, the most powerful thing is letting somebody know that they're not alone, and it takes a lot of courage to do that, because what if they say, oh, you pussy, I'm fine, but um, so it takes a lot more to do that, and the effects of it can be profound, man. How many suicide stories do you hear the guy talking about or girl talking about where in that moment I heard, somebody called me, like me, my mom called me.
Yeah.
Um, this guy has heard his daughter screaming upstairs.
Yeah. Divine intervention.
Um, when you're alone, when you feel like you're completely alone, yeah, it makes sense to, put a bullet through your brain. It's or but when you know that somebody else is experiencing this too, or um, somebody's you can allow somebody to be in there and be. Anyway, that's the idea is that um, to break, just widen it out, man. Just we're human beings,
Yeah.
we're firefighters. Okay, big deal. You're a human being first, and this job's going to end.
Definitely.
And, and it's a great job, man. It's a great job. The stuff we get to do.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
So it should be winning the lotto. It should be amazing. It should be the brotherhood that we all think we're joining. So that's my opinion. And I hope someday it can come to fruition.
Yeah. Well, so many things that we were able to touch on. I feel like we can actually talk for another 2 hours
Yeah,
because there's so
we're just
much to
scratching the
unpack.
surface.
There's so much to really unpack and really dive deep into. But we'll definitely have to do this again, Morgan.
Yeah, man.
I
Happy to.
really, truly appreciate you coming on, telling your story, and talking about things that sometimes some firefighters might find difficult to express or to talk about, but you, through your own courage and through your own experiences, have found a way to express yourself through your TEDx talks, through your music, and through just being the person that you are, touching people in the ways that you can. So I truly, truly appreciate you, man. Um, where can people get more of Morgan?
My morganengland.com is my um, website. There's, my talks, different podcasts, things I've done on there, or hire me to speak, whatever. And then I have my Etsy shop where my primitive bows and arrows and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's Bohemian Warrior Craft on Etsy. Um,
Okay.
and yeah, just Morgan England Music also on social. Like I think it's either Morgan England or Morgan England Music. But
Okay.
yeah, you can find me anywhere. I'm not the most social media person, but I have my moments, throw
Yeah,
something.
absolutely. Well, Morgan, like I said, thank you so much, brother, for coming on, talking shop with me. We'll have to do it again soon.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
for
can I
everybody,
can I say one last thing?
yeah,
If anybody would like to, these TEDx talks, just look up my name, Morgan England, on YouTube, TEDx, and both of my talks are up there. So I put a lot of work into it, and hopefully, it can help people that might be struggling. Sorry.
definitely. Um, yeah, like I said, thank you, Morgan. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and checking us out. Hopefully, we were able to leave you with something to think about, a nugget to take into your own life and to help you out. So, thanks again, everybody. Have a wonderful day. God bless.
God bless.